and then we'll get into some of the services that RC&D can provide for independents. So I did graduate from NICC and arboriculture back in 2002. I went to work at RC&D in 2004 as a forester, and we did focus on the rural forester out in the woodlands. In 2006, we contracted with the Iowa DNR to do the gypsy moth trapping in our part of the northeast Iowa, Pinal-McKee, Clayton, Fayette counties. And in 2008, when the emerald ash borer was getting more and more known, we contracted with the DNR to do some of the monitoring for it and using sentinel trees, which is girdling ash trees in the fall, stripping the bark between about 6 to 8 inches of it, and that stresses the tree, so any ash borer in the area are attracted to that particular tree. And we did that up through this past fall, 2013. Unfortunately, due to funding issues, that program has been discontinued. In 2012, I did find 2 of the ash borer and 2 of the trees up by New Albin. It confirmed that it was up there and then had moved off that original island in the Mississippi. It was called Henderson Island. It was now on, I could call it the mainland of Iowa, and starting to move. Let's see. Oh yeah. I'm going to back up just a couple of years. In 2010, 2011, we contracted with the DNR Urban Forestry Department to do tree inventories for communities in northeast Iowa. It was a grant program for communities less than 5,000 population. The thinking was they did not have a forester, they would be needing help when this thing arrived. So we got that contract, and over the 2 years I did 19 of the inventories for those towns. We'll start up here. This is the emerald ash borer's life cycle, and if I can find my pointer, right here. Okay, we're about in this area here. The larvae are still in the tree. There is one step missing in this circle, which I didn't realize, so I got it in there, but there's a pupa stage between the larvae, which is here, and then the ash borer itself emerging out of the tree. They emerge from the tree in May to June, starting about mid-May and about to the end of June or so. They don't travel very far from that original tree. The females will lay their eggs on that tree most times. If there's root, they lay 60 to 80 eggs at a time each year. The eggs hatch in May to August, very small larvae. They tunnel through the bark into the tree, and then they start immediately to eat their way around the tree. They're girdling the tree. That's an S-shaped gallery that they create. That cuts off the cambium layer of the tree, which is where the nutrients are coming up, the water's going up, and then the chlorophyll, the sugars, whatever they're done up in the leaves start to come down. So a very, very quick life history of the ash borer. The current distribution of the ash borer is all these states that are colored. They are, here's Iowa. This is the most current one in March. It's been updated just about monthly lately. You can see here's Blackhawk County, Bremer County right above it, up in Waverly. And then there's Pinal-McKee County up there that it's fine, and then 4 other counties in Iowa that it's been found. It's pretty well understood that it's widespread. It's going to be found in more and more counties the more people are out looking for it. The one in Waverly was actually found by an arborist doing the inventory for the town. The one in Waterloo, I think, was some of the tree care people of the city crew actually found it in Waterloo. Are you folks, well, it says it's restarting. I hope that's not what it does.
So when these things are, when are they visible on the outside of the tree that they make this ring?
Not for several years. No. That's a big problem in that it takes 2 to 3, maybe even 4 years before the damage is visible. The symptoms start to show up after that time period. So you could be, the tree out right next door to us here could be infected. We wouldn't know it, for a couple of years. Anybody know what this means? I'm not familiar with this very much.
we need a techie. We need,
Yeah, we
probably-
do.
We need Austin.
Austin, young guys, come on.
Yeah, it'll restart in a minute here. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Well,
We have some of the pictures that you had sent to Barb
Right,
that was
I think we-
downloaded, and so everybody has that on their iPads,
Oh, okay.
if they wanna, at least the council members do,
Yeah,
so we can follow some of it.
thanks. Nice to meet you. I did have the next two pictures here were going to be of the state of Iowa where it's currently quarantined, and then a 15-mile diameter, radius, where we're supposed to be starting treatment, starting moving trees, things like that. This page here shows the galleries in the top picture. I may look over your shoulder. Yep, that one. That's what the tree looks like after it's dead. I mean, it's gone. There's no life in that tree anymore. The bark actually starts flaking off all on its own. This bottom picture below that is a white ash leaflet, leaf and leaflets. That's one of the defining identifications. It also forms narrow bark ridges that kind of develop a diamond shape as the tree gets older and bigger. The next picture is the 6 of the symptoms. The D-shaped exit hole, the galleries again, the leaves with ragged edges from feeding. That's pretty hard to tell. Then you got the sparse leaves or dying branches in the lower left of that group. That's when the tree is actually dying from the crown down. The ash borer lays their eggs up near the top to begin with. So those branches up there have been choked off, and the ash borer actually eventually moves down to the bottom, and that's when we get this picture here. The far right bottom corner is the suckers growing out of the trunk, or epicormic sprouts. The tree is trying to survive. Those will grow, but when they get to about 1 inch in diameter or so, if they're still there, that's when the ash borer will start attacking them and girdling them, and they decline too. That bottom picture is actually supposed to be angled this way, but I didn't have room on the page. This shows a tree that's actually up at Fish Farm Mounds along the Highway 26 south of New Albin a few miles. And the woodpeckers have been trying to get to the larvae underneath the bark. They will go after the larvae. This is probably the first sign that people recognize it's here. Actually, on my way to New Albin to take that picture, I stopped at some trees along a county road a few miles away from New Albin, about 8 miles west, and I noticed the woodpecker damage. I came back the next day with my draw knife and peeled some of the bark off, and within 20 minutes I collected 6 of the larvae. There's about 8 black ash in the county road ditch that are infected with the emerald ash borer. It moves about 2 to 3 miles per year. The flying range is not all that great. People do think it might go up to 15 miles. That's kind of undetermined for sure yet, but definitely 2 to 3 miles per year. If it's looking for food, it's looking for that next ash tree is how it goes. It just kind of hops right along, moving through the woodlands and through towns. It does affect all of our ashes. We know that, the white, green, the blue, and the black. We don't have too many of the blues up here. They're more in the southern part of the state. Let's go to good. The next page. That one has the quarantine map of Iowa, the current 8 counties that I have been positive finds in it. I guess we'll just forget it. And I think you folks are, what, 20 miles from Waterloo, if I remember right?
Something like that.
So it's pretty close. It's not to the point of we got to do something today. One of the speakers I was at the Shade Tree Short Course, it was Dave Zwack from Davey Tree Company. He used the phrase appropriate urgency dealing with this sucker. I would say you folks being that close to Waterloo and a proven find on a scale of 1 to 10, you might be at a 3. You know, it's time to get an inventory done. I know that's part of why we're here. And if we're here, then we jump up the scale pretty quickly. On the next slide, I go into some of the impacts. It's been a huge impact back east. Tens of millions of trees have already died. There's the economic and ecosystem benefits to taxpayers that are gone. decreased property values, increased energy demand, stormwater control. That's actually a pretty big one. And just the sociological benefits. I've got a note there about the benefits of the trees. This is from an item that the Iowa State Forestry Extension put out. In Des Moines, a green ash tree with a 20-inch diameter breast height has an annual economic benefit of $200 to a single-family residence. 25 inches benefits $254, et cetera. Just keeps on going up. Let's see. The bottom, yeah, a little bit further. There we go. Those two pictures there, they were taken in Toledo, Ohio. It's a street called Belvedere Drive. And on the left, those trees are infected, but you can see they're still alive, they're still growing, they're still green. This is in June of '06. In June of '09, they're all dead. All those ash trees are dead and need to be replaced, taken down first.
I don't think your slide's working, so.
Okay. Well, now let's see. You're gonna get, maybe I can get going again here. Give this a try.
I don't think you're,
Thanks for your patience, folks.
That computer really does not want
we're
to
not gonna
bother.
get pictures on there we shouldn't wanna see, are we, Doug?
Looks like someone's got control of it, so if you do it, you can talk Blake.
Blake's the guy, huh?
He's the man.
This is kind of an exercise in crisis management.
Get the jump again.
You guys have a charger for this?
cable?
And you didn't see it out there, but I'll look.
Oh, we're back to the beginning.
Almost there.
You got your starter, huh?
Gotta find my arrow again.
I think we just
Okay, the national map, the state of Iowa map, we got that. This is the map that shows the 50-mile radius of where folks should be doing something, including treatment, if you're gonna do treatments. Anybody that comes in the door and says, at this point, okay, Independence, you should be treating your trees now, they're pushing the limit now. When it's voluntary, you can do it, but it's Iowa State, Michigan State, Purdue, all these people say 15 miles, you're still okay. I made the mistake of moving my arrow. Come on. Where are we at on this page? Oh,
No.
Oh, we got the cartoon.
I'm jumping too far ahead.
Like Wally.
Left, right arrows.
You guys see the arrow? I can see the arrow.
No, I know.
Wow. Oh, well. You saw the cartoon about the camper, you know, I'm stupid. This is my contact information, my sources for all this research, and I'm gonna get rid of this because it's too much of a problem. Where is it?
Yeah, it's clearing the bottom.
Way over there, okay. So where's my arrows now?
The arrow buttons work. Yeah, try your arrow buttons.
Yeah, try the left and right arrow buttons on the keyboard.
Okay, hit the mouse off.
Oh.
Page up, page down, something.
There we go. All right, 50-mile stuff. Let's see if I can find one. A couple more examples of what happened back east. That picture on the top left is kind of hard to see, but if you look at the second tree from the front, you can see the light pole prior to the tree's removal, and just totally stripped that street there. On the right, that column of 3, that bottom picture, that's after the Toledo, Ohio trees were removed. Totally stripped that. This, and I really, when I saw this picture on the left, I was like, wow, I really feel for that guy. He's probably there when the Dutch elm trees were removed. Here, this is happening to his neighborhood now. I do wanna go a little bit further into this know where you are. It's called the death curve, is a good way to put it. The ash mortality, the first 4 to 5 years, it's hard to tell it's even there. It looks normal. But then, you get past years 5 and 6, years 7 through about 12 here, 13, all of a sudden, some spring, you're gonna have hundreds of ash trees dying. Now, we don't know what you folks have as far as trees in town yet, but I'm guessing you probably have several hundred at least. They all happen just about at the same time. They turn into this, and what we saw in that previous slide. There's lots of problems here, obviously. They gotta come down. They become very, very brittle. When the ash borer has killed them, I mean, if they don't die, they're killed. Because the trees are brittle because they were killed so quickly. They've just plain dried out. They've been starved for 3 to 4 or 5 years. It's very dangerous, very hazardous to take those down. I am going to defer to our insurance agents that are still with us as far as liability issues, because, you know, you've got trees lining your streets in private yards. The liability issues must be huge. Ralph, can you have some information?
Well, the biggest thing is they get brittle so fast, you're gonna have, every time the wind blows, you're gonna have tree limbs falling all over the street and everything else. And it isn't like a regular tree that dies, this here tree deteriorates real fast. So you're gonna have continual tree limbs falling until you take them down.
Treatment, how long will that extend the life of, if you treat them?
Current treatment, the best of the lot is something called triage, and that's a 2-year treatment. And as soon as I get done with this slide, we'll get there. But you want to start that, if at all possible, even before year 1 here, if you can do it. I mean, it works best as a preventive treatment. But it does have some curative effect. So if you're in year 1, 2, maybe even 3, you can use it and kill the emerald ash borer that are in the tree. There's a couple things that are approved that they don't last 2 years, but they last maybe 30 to 45 days, enough to wipe out the larvae that are in that tree. And then you have to wait the next year and then use your 2-year treatment again. There's nothing longer than the 2 years at this time that's been approved. There is a lot of research going on back east. Again, Michigan State, Ohio State, Purdue, Minnesota, I think, is even working on it to find insecticides that will last longer than that 2-year time period. And that will reduce, you know, the expense of treating for your trees, and also change this curve a lot. Actually, just by treating 2 years, you change this curve a lot, because I'm going to jump into the management part of my speech here, because I know time is flying. You can use the treatments to save ash trees. Do it every 2 years. It's got to be a valuable tree, something historical significance, heritage, or a particular meaning to the city or the homeowners, whatever. At this point, does that be repeated every 2 years? Okay. You can also use the treatments to spread out this curve. You can kind of flatten it out. So maybe you're here and you can kind of slow it down this way a little bit. So you're not expending so much per year to remove the dead trees. You're saving some for later removal. You're spreading out your cost.
But in the end, are we just delaying the inevitable?
Yes.
I mean, is that?
For a certain amount of trees, yes.
Is that what we're doing?
If you're doing it to, kind of bend the curve, yes, that's what you're doing. If you're doing it to save the trees, even after this 15-year time period here where everything else is dead, you're going to have some trees that are still alive. But you do have to continue with the treatment.
So maybe it's too early to start thinking about this, but then what we really have to do is think about how much is maybe in city parks and stuff, the
Correct.
city, but obviously then you have to convince all of the citizens
Yes.
that have trees that that's important. So it's a
Community education and involvement is crucial for this kind of a thing to work. I mean, your citizens have to understand that it's a good thing. We can save some trees. It's going to cost the city and the private citizens money no matter what they do. If you take them all down, that's going to cost a lot of money. Anywhere from, depending on the size of the tree, 400 to 800 to 1,000. Backyard trees could be even more. You're trying to pull a big tree like that out of somebody's backyard, that's going to be a $1,200 to $1,500 job.
With this disease in that tree, if we take it down, can another tree be planted there? Or is there
Yes.
still something in the ground that's going to affect a different type of tree that's planted?
There's nothing left in the ground
Okay.
from this insect or from the treatments. If you do the stem injection, it's totally locked into the tree. You do it down low, it goes up into the leaves, throughout the stems of the tree, does not go back down. The leaves themselves, and studies back east again have shown that the insecticide actually deteriorates very quickly. Microbial action and sunlight actually break it down very quickly. It's even safe for honeybees because ash trees are wind pollinated. So the honeybees do not pay attention to it when it's flowering. So that's also been studied. There's been a lot of work done back east that we're the beneficiary of all that work, which is great. We get a chance now to save some of our trees. Back east, the only option they had was to take them all out. There was no other option. And even the federal government would come in and say, Independence, you have to take down all your trees. There was no argument. It was done.
But is it, going back to, is it a deal where, let's just say a town really embraced it?
Okay.
You could absolutely save all your trees and everything, or is it just saving them for the next generation? You see what I'm trying to ask?
Sure, sure.
Is it the inevitable, or?
At this point, a lot of the professors and people that are studying this are they're not 100%. Nobody can be 100% on this thing yet. Fairly certain that I don't have the emerald ash borer wave curve. It's very similar to this one. But as the ash borer is killing these trees, the ash borer population actually starts decreasing because their food supply is leaving. It's gone. Most communities aren't going to treat all their ash trees. It's too expensive. You've got bad ash in town. You might as well take those down. Actually, you can start taking those down now, for that matter. You want to figure out what percentage of your healthy trees can be saved economically that are worth it. Because there's going to, maybe it's only 10%, maybe it's 25%. Very different communities do different things. It depends on what your inventory is. Your tree diversity, you want to keep about 10% if you can, and then maybe some special trees here and there.
When you do your inventory, are you going to classify the trees by size?
Correct, by DBH, which also tells you something
I've read
about the
somewhere where it's better to start out with your small trees that aren't providing shade or
Correct.
being helpful, take those out,
Might as
whether
well.
they're infected or not.
Right, might as well get something else in there that you're not
Get
doing.
that replaced, and then hopefully it'll grow enough to replace the larger one.
Correct, and I've read that too, and I agree with that. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Does the price of treating the tree vary?
Yes, per diameter it does.
Okay.
What we're looking at to use is the triage. It's emamectin benzoate. It's $10 per diameter inch, going up to a 20-inch diameter tree, which is a pretty good sized tree. So you're looking at $200 for that tree. Above that, it starts to increase about 10 to 15 cents per diameter inch because the tree is putting on more girth as it gets bigger. I actually figured that out when we get to our treatments, but
Is there different?
I don't want to be a doom and gloomer, but I think you just answered the question of why people don't do this, and you end up with a bunch of, I mean, if you have $200 a tree, private citizens aren't going to do it.
some folks will. I've already had some folks tell me they will.
Maybe some,
Yeah.
but if you treat yours and your neighbor and everybody doesn't, and then you have to treat it every year to
Every two.
every two.
Every two. Yeah. And hopefully down the line,
Yeah.
they're, like I said, they're looking into longer treatments, 4 or 5 years,
Yeah.
And hopefully less expensive. At least they've given us some hope. We don't have to just, surrender to this thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can.
like we did with.
But one thing,
Gotcha.
Mike,
Right.
if your neighbors don't, and their trees all die, and your tree's treated, emerald borer's gonna move on or die.
Right, right. And you keep the benefits of that tree for the shade, the property value, kind of stuff stays there for you. So
Is there
that's-
different types of treatments? I thought I read somewhere once that some of the treatments that they use goes into the ground and affects the trees around it. Did I read that somewhere? I can't remember where.
Well, there's some soil drenches that are available. It's a different chemical. Usually it's imidacloprid, and that one is the only one one of those formulations has been approved for private use. The others, the one I'm talking about, that's a restricted pesticide. Only certified applicators can use it. Soil drenches, they're cheap, especially the homeowner one. It's an annual treatment. It does have the capacity to move through the soil. You know, especially if you're doing it on wet soil or if there's a waterway close by, you really shouldn't be using it because it will leach through. There's another one called dinyl-tifuran, which is a bark spray. You spray about 4 to 5 feet up the stem of the tree. Both those two are good for up to about a 15-inch tree. Beyond that, the research has shown they're not that effective. They just don't quite get the job done. They're maybe 60 to 70% effective. The triage is 99% effective. Very, very powerful stuff. And you don't need much. I mean, it's a thimbleful that you use. It's amazing. Let's see. We are here. I love this cartoon. It's great. The biggest problem, other than the thing being here, is that it's mostly people that move around. I mean, how else would I get into Colorado and Kansas, Missouri? Let's get to inventories. That's one of the things that you folks have to deal with soon. And that's one of the things that RC&D can do for you. These are from the City of Cresco inventory that we did back in 2010. It's not the complete town. This one here is just the northeast quadrant of Cresco. The red trees, one shade is white and the other shade is green ash. We can put it together a whole map like that one that shows all of the trees, but it gets so crowded you can't tell what you're looking at. This we just did today is actually a closer view of this area here. When we were looking at this, we thought, well, I bet that area had a real heavy population of Dutch elm back in the 50s and 40s and whatever. That's probably why they're so heavy with ash right now. It spreads out a little bit better. This is not